Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, with Fusion Strike out on Friday, or having just come out on Friday if this video gets pushed a couple of days, it's time to look at the cards you need to buy to get yourself ready to start playing, because we know that proper tournaments are coming back, and I, for one, am absolutely delighted. Remember the deal, there are the usual rules as we go through this. If you want to play a particular Pokemon, buy that Pokemon. I, for one, am going to be hanging around and playing some Steelix, because that looks like fun, but I'm well aware that the majority of you aren't going to play Steelix, so you aren't going to need to go and buy this card. Similarly, Pokemon V, VMAX, etc. only make the list where they're going to fit into a whole bunch of decks and you really need them. That's fairly important. And if you want to buy something that's not on this list, obviously do so. I am looking at the cards that you are going to want to have in your binder because they will fit into a whole bunch of decks in the future. We're not looking at specific attackers. That's up for you to decide which deck you want to play. So with all of that borne in mind, you need to start off with a couple of Ninetales. Ninetales has got that rather lovely ability that reduces the retreat cost of each of your Pokemon with any fire energy attached to it by 2. It allows you to get cheaper, easier retreat in any deck that's playing fire energy or any energy that can count as fire. You're gonna need a couple. Similarly, the ORICORIO could well end up being a 1 or 2 of in every Fusion Strike deck you ever play, because it reduces the damage done to your Fusion Strike Pokemon by 20. Now, you only need a couple of these because it doesn't stack, so you'll put 1 in your deck or maybe 2 if you're worried about it being prized, but this looks like it's going to be a staple in basically every Fusion Strike deck going forward. Now, Huntail and Gorbis come off the same evolution line. They are thematically rather similar, and I think you need a pair of them. Again, you're unlikely to be playing more than 1 of these at a time, but you may well end up having them prized. Now, Gorbis, you definitely aren't going to want more than 1. It just turns off Rapid Strike Pokemon's abilities. It's kind of amazing, and it's only for your opponent, I should add. It's a great little tech that is going to be good against a whole bunch of decks moving forward. Huntail increases the cost of your opponent's single strike Pokemon's attacks by 1, and this does actually stack, so maybe Huntail you will want a couple of more, so you can actually stack them up and end up using it over and over again. Could be fun. Now, I think you need 4 Pyukumuku, and I might be alone in this, but I think this is going to be a great card. Basically, if it's in your hand, you can put it on the bottom of your deck and draw a card. Now, you can only use 1 Pyukumuku per turn, but in any speed deck or any deck that can get away with playing fewer than 60 cards, this is just going to be really nice for adding consistency, and I really like the idea of putting it in some speed decks. Now, Toxtricity, I think you need 2 to 4 of these. It's got a really rather nice ability that lowers the maximum HP of your opponent's Pokemon VMAX by 30. So if you're playing a Fusion Strike deck, and it only works if all your Pokemon are Fusion Strike, but if you're playing a Fusion Strike deck, you can actually use this to really hurt your opponent in terms of just bringing down their VMAX HP to the point where you can get a KO with Pokemon you shouldn't be able to. Now, GRANBULL is not getting a lot of hype from this set, and I understand why, but I think you need 1 or 2 of these hanging around, because it's got the ability Dig Up that lets you grab 2 Pokemon tools from your discard pile and put them into your hand. No, it's not going to be a staple in every deck, and no, it's not a game-breaking ability, but if you really need to reuse abilities, this is a great way you can actually go about doing so. And I also kind of want to add in 2 to 4 copies of Mew VMAX here. Now, this is a bit of a weird one, because generally speaking, I would say, well, this is an attacker. So, if you're going to play a Mew VMAX deck, get Mew VMAX. If you're not, then don't. Because it's kind of an expensive card to go and buy as a 4 of, and then never actually play it. But because it's got the attack that lets you copy the attacks of other Fusion Strike Pokemon on your bench, that cross-Fusion Strike attack, that does actually mean that if you're playing a non-Mew VMAX, but still Fusion Strike deck, you might actually still want to have a couple copies of these lying around, so I'm going to leave it with you. You have been warned. Now, MELOETTA, I do think you need a couple of these, because this should be at least consideration to be a tech in every Fusion Strike deck. Because it does for 2 energy, 70 damage for each Fusion Strike energy attached to all of your Pokemon, and you're going to be playing Fusion Strike energy, and you're going to be playing Elisa's Radiance to get the Fusion Strike energy into play more easily, and you're hitting a good weakness, and it's a single prize Pokemon, and this just seems too good not to consider. Similarly, you need 1 or 2 more Pico, because I feel about more Pico in single strike decks as I feel about MELOETTA in Fusion Strike decks. It's got a lovely attack that does 30 damage for each damage counter on it, which doesn't sound like a lot, especially with only 50 HP, but when you consider we've got both Houndoom and Single Strike Energy, Houndoom will put the Single Strike Energy on. That'll then put you at 4 damage counters, because you take 2 damage counters every time you do that. And you've got your Single Strike Energy as well doing extra damage, and this ends up being a lot bigger than it would at first appear. Plus you're hitting a pretty good weakness, so if I'm playing a Single Strike deck, I'm taking a more Pico in more often than not at this stage. Genesect V, I'm just going to say it, I think you need a playset. Genesect is one of the very rare Pokemon V where I look at it and go, fine, I'll buy a playset. Straight away, no questions. It's got a decent attack, free energy 210, but more importantly than that, it's got the ability to let you draw until you've got as many cards in hand as you've got Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. And it's not limited to once per turn, just once per turn per Genesect. So if I've got 4 Genesect out and I can keep emptying my hand, I'm drawing 24 cards. That's ridiculous. And if you're going to be playing a Fusion Strike deck, this is going to be your draw engine. We don't know what Fusion Strike decks are going to be like in the future. We don't know what Fusion Strike Pokemon are going to be released. The only thing I really can tell you is you're going to want to play Genesect in that deck. You're going to need a playset. I am sorry. Latias is Daisy's spirit Pokemon, my lovely daughter, but it's also a card you need a couple copies of because it's got an awesome attack that does 70 damage and makes it immune to Pokemon V Maxes. If you are playing a Mew deck, and a lot of people are going to be playing Mew decks, you are going to want to play at least 1 copy of Latias, but then 1 might be prized, so yeah. Latias in Mew decks is nuts, but it's also kind of good on its own. And then we got DUNSPARCE. You need a couple of DUNSPARCE. It removes weakness from colorless Pokemon, which is awesome. But remember that when Brilliant Stars, the next set drops, colorless Pokemon are going to get way, way better. You are going to need some DUNSPARCE. Now, my general rule with trainer cards is just get a playset of all of them, because you never know what's going to end up happening in future, but I have got some caveats for some of these. So Adventurer's Discovery, I do think you need 4 of this. This is that card that lets you search for free Pokemon V and put them into your hand, bearing in mind you can then use coming into play abilities, so something like a Crobat, you will be able to then play it from your hand to your bench and draw cards, i.e. you don't have to give up your draw engine in order to play this, which is awesome. But remember that Pokemon V Max and V Union and almost certainly V Star, I mean it will, it's just not been confirmed yet, are subsets of Pokemon V, and this becomes way better. Battle VIP Pass and Dancer I'm putting on the list, but I'm putting them on with a caveat. Because Battle VIP Pass lets you search for 2 basic Pokemon and bench them, but only during your first turn. And Dancer lets you draw 2 cards, but if it's your first turn going second, you draw 5 instead. These are cards that you really have to play at a specific time, so you need to have a kind of deck where you can manipulate when you draw these, so I've put them on the list, but they've got an asterisk for that reason. Chili and Silent and Crest let you search for free Fusion Strike Pokemon, but bearing in mind that includes Genesect, which is a draw engine, so it's a great card. Cook lets you heal 70 from your active. It's not a great card. Feel free to leave it off your own list, but it is decent healing, so I'm putting it on there. CRAM-O-MATIC lets you discard a card from your hand, flip a coin, and if head, search for any card. Again, if you want to leave this off, feel free. It's not a stunning card, but there are some decks that are going to be able to make a use of this and actually get rolling and get some weird techs out, and I think this is going to see play in some decks. Cross-switcher and cross-seaver, if you are going to play, you need to play 4. Because you can only play them 2 at a time, and if you only put 2 in your deck, it's not worth it. Cross-switcher, if you play 2, it's gusting and you switch. And cross-seaver, if you play 2, you recover a supporter card to your hand. So, put very bluntly, ladies and gentlemen, these are great cards that are going to see a whole bunch of play, but you need 4 of them because they only work, literally, only work as pairs. Elisa's Sparkle, you need 4 of because it lets you attach 2 Fusion Strike energy from your deck. If you're playing a Fusion Strike deck, you're going to be playing this card. Farewell Bell lets you attach it to a Pokemon VMAX, and if that Pokemon VMAX is KO'd by damage from an attack, you search your deck for any card. Again, I can't tell you it's going to be a staple in every deck, but I can tell you in a VMAX heavy deck, this is definitely one to consider every time. Judge and Shauna go on this list as 4 of, but again, you might well have these cards. Because neither of these are particularly old school cards. They're reprints of cards that didn't rotate out that long ago. I've got a billion Judge and Shauna lying around. I don't need any more. You might be in that position, but if you're not, make sure you've got a play set of each. Power Tablet lets you do an extra 30 damage on your Fusion Strike attacks this turn. So if you're ever playing a Fusion Strike deck, you're going to need this. And that's the case of a bunch of cards in this set. We don't know what Fusion Strike Pokemon are coming, so we need to be prepared for whatever might come along, and these are the Fusion Strike cards that you are going to be playing if you ever want to play a Fusion Strike deck. Schoolboy and Schoolgirl I'm putting on the list, but again with an asterisk because I don't actually think they're very good. They let you draw 2 cards, and if your opponent's got 1, 3, or 5 prize cards remaining, Schoolboy gets an extra 2, and if they've got 2, 4, or 6 prize cards remaining, Schoolgirl gets you an extra 2. They're easily played around, and you're going to draw the wrong one at the wrong time, etc. I could see some decks using these as draw engines, but again, if you want to leave these off, I wouldn't be upset at you. Sydney is a fun little card that lets you look at your opponent's hand and discard up to 2 in any combination of tools, special energy, and stadiums. If you're playing a disruption deck in the future, you may well be playing Sydney. Quite possibly not as a 4 of, but I'm still going to have a playset lying around. Skaters Park is a stadium, and if you discard energy when you retreat, it goes to your hand. In decks that can then attach extra energy, this is a really good choice. And then we got Spongy Gloves, does 30 damage extra to water Pokemon. Really, really good, because remember that Inteleon line is seeing a whole bunch of play at the moment. So this could absolutely let you get cheeky KOs on those. The gloves are as they always are. If there's a particular matchup you're really struggling with, the gloves can make a difference. And for me, I've got a playset of all of them hanging around just in case. And finally, Fusion Strike Energy. You need a playset, because if you ever play a Fusion Strike deck, that's kind of a no-brainer. Here's a list as a whole. Again, there are asterisks on some of these, as I explained as we went through. This is for me. This is my buy list. These are the cards that I want hanging around so that when I'm building a deck, my goal is I will only ever need the attackers. I need to go and pick up the attackers, but everything else is going to have been on my buy list, so it's going to be in my binder and be nice and easy. As always, add whatever you want and take whatever you want away. That is very much up to you, and that's what I want you telling me in the comment section. Which of these cards would you not want to go after, and are there any cards in Fusion Strike you think should be on this list that aren't already? Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.